Thank you, Mayor Wynne, for your very thoughtful presentation, for your hospitality. It is now time to award the first Athena Award of the 16th Congress, and it is my pleasure on behalf of the board of the CNU to do so. Athena was the Greek goddess of wisdom, the patron of the city of Athens, and by extension of urbanity and of civility itself. The CNU Athena Award is given annually to those in our country and the world who, before the advent of the new urbanism, defended the value of cities, the merits of the discipline of urban design, and the advantages and the pleasures of city living itself. Shockingly, in this great country, in this great continental country of more than 300 million people, there were only a handful of such pioneers. Sinclair Black is one. Sinclair has dedicated his entire professional life to a series of grand and not particularly popular causes. He's an architect whose design method is based on the traditional practice of valuing history and precedent. That is, combining travel, observation, listening, conversing, sketching, and ultimately converting human experience, his and that of others, into the raw material of that which is yet to come. At the University of Texas and in his office, he educated and mentored two generations of architects and inspired them by example to use their buildings not so much as individual monuments, but as active ingredients in the construction of the city and in the stewardship of nature. If you judge from the many moving letters I have recently received, the people he mentored are deeply grateful for the chance to have been his students. Many of them, accomplished in their own right, are gathered in this room today, and as you all know, Sinclair continues to be a prized teacher of architecture and urbanism today. Since the 1980s, the early 1980s, he has had a keen interest in the rebuilding of the great cities of our country. A contrarian, when it was really not the fashion to be so, he advocated the revitalization of downtown Austin and San Antonio as an author, an architect, and a developer when sprawl and urban renewal were the rage. His unbuilt projects speak eloquently and very sadly about a lost urban Austin, what Austin downtown might have been. He has contributed hundreds of beautifully built buildings and places designed in a form that belongs to the Central Texas region alone. He has been engaged for decades with the public process and values people and their experience of climate, culture, and place as the basis of all design. He is a rare master of all scales, from the region to the handrail. Actually, the computer is so impressed by your work, Sinclair, it just wouldn't go forward, even when I pressed the button. You all recognize, most of you who live here, what great places these are, the places that you live in every day. Sinclair is a rare combination of a quiet person and a brilliant mind. He has labored in favor of every key idea that is now identified with the new urbanism, and unlike many of his contemporaries, he's had the courage to join a movement he did not invent. He's a true prophet in his hometown. It is time to recognize his enormous contributions and to remind ourselves that in order to prosper and to become grounded in tradition, every town and city in America needs the quiet fortitude and the inspiring leadership of a Sinclair Black. Sinclair, I am sure you're cringing listening to me outlining a full lifetime of your accomplishments. Please be certain that all of us gathered here today know and believe that you richly deserve this distinction. On behalf of the board and the 4,000 national members of the Congress of New Urbanism, it is a great honor for me to bestow upon you the Athena Award. Congratulations.
Wow, thanks. Thanks very much. I would like to quickly add my own welcome, if you're not from Austin, to Austin, and I'd like to welcome all of you here tonight. I was going to apologize for the weather. Austin always says they have 250 days of sunshine a year. That's true. But what they don't tell you is that the other 115 all happen in April. So it's a little cloudy out there, and just sorry about that. Come back in February and go swimming, you know. I wanted to talk about the influences that I see, but looking back, that have shaped my career and attitude, and start really with a number of people, two of whom have been mentioned here already tonight. If I can make this high-tech thing work, I want to start with Alan Taniguchi. Alan Taniguchi was the dean of the School of Architecture for many years. In fact, he was the first dean before he was made a dean. The architecture program had it was a department, I believe, but it was not. It didn't have a dean. In any case, Alan built the school. Alan defined concepts like honesty, integrity, and he was heavily involved in city affairs. And I think that's where I caught the disease. And I don't know whether to thank him for that or not. In any case, Alan was a great man and was a great dean and a great friend and my mentor. You heard about O'Neill Ford earlier this evening. O'Neill Ford was, as Boone Powell suggested, probably the preeminent architect in the state for a 30 to 50 year period. His influence is extremely pervasive. When I graduated, I went to San Antonio to interview with O'Neill Ford, and he offered me 70 cents an hour to work for him. I was already making over $1 an hour in Austin, so I didn't take the job. Probably a huge mistake. I might be your partner right now, pal, Boone, pal. That would be good for me, but not necessarily for you. Charles Moore. I was affected by Charles Moore when I was in graduate school at Berkeley, and I knew who he was, and I made my pilgrimage to Sea Ranch. You notice this picture of Sea Ranch, there's no trees? Well, it was brand new. If you go there now, it's pretty hard to find because there's so many trees around it. Anyway, Charles was inspiring. Charles was, in my book, possibly the most creative person, certainly that I ever met, but maybe that ever lived. He was an incredible person and a great influence and a nice fit in the school. Even in the last 10 years of his career, as Arthur Anderson said, he really found a home here, and we were happy to have him. We were lucky to have him. When I was at Berkeley in '69 and '70, which is, by the way, a pretty interesting time to be at Berkeley, I learned a lot. I was a TA for a man named Joseph Esherick for 2 quarters. And Joseph Esherick was to California architecture what O'Neill Ford was to Texas architecture. He was heavily involved in the Sea Ranch planning, represented at the top, the first really truly archaeological, environmental, in-depth analysis of the land in order to produce a development. His firm later was, of course, awarded Firm of the Year and sometime in the mid-'80s, I think. and for the Monterey Bay Aquarium represented below. He was a very profound, quiet, interesting man, and was really viewed as the most important personality in California for many, many years. One of the people that influenced him and influenced me was Bernard Maybeck. Of course, Maybeck was long gone, but when I walked to class at Berkeley, I would walk past that Christian church. It was so amazing. I would also, if I went a block over, I'd pass buildings by Julia Morgan and at least one Green and Green. So just walking to class was an architectural education. And I'm still really impressed by Maybeck. And then there's Hal Box, who had a great impact on me as one of a long list of mentors. Hal's book, recently published, Think Like an Architect, reveals a lot about him, but it also reveals a lot about me by echo, because I was influenced a great deal by him. He was, I think, the strongest dean of a school of architecture over his 16-year tenure at the university, strongest dean of any dean in the country. He absolutely defined leadership in the way that Alan Taniguchi defined integrity. They both had both, of course. So these people, hang on a second, these people influenced me enormously. And I asked myself, why these people? Why me? And I kind of finally put it together while thinking of this talk. I said, okay, what's a common theme that runs through those people and therefore through me? And that is, I guess, it's a healthy distrust for modernism and a equally profound reliance on real issues. These people were invested in building more than buildings. They were interested in qualities of authenticity, sunlight, construction processes, craftsmanship, site, context, placemaking, and so forth, as you've heard earlier. I guess I just relate. That's all I can say about that. There's a non-person influence on me that's pretty profound, and that is all my travels, but particularly Mexico. When I went to Hal Box, 15 years ago or so, and said, we ought to do a program in Mexico. And he said, characteristically, well, okay, if you want to do it, go do it. But don't come back with excuses, just do it. That was Hal. So I started a program called Studio Mexico, which is still running today, and this is probably 15 years later, 16. I did it for the first 7 years. And I think back and look back at slides like these, and I think, okay, what is it? It's that powerful form. It's that fabulous space between the trees. And it's that incredible celebration of culture, religion, color, space, etc., inside that church. And so all I can say about that is, what's not to love about a country that can do that? Two of my more recent influences, of course, are Stefanos. This is an image of the San Antonio River North project that he asked me to help him with. It was his project. And I learned as much in a week as I normally do in a year, running around behind him helping do this project. It's a pretty amazing event is what it was, a week-long charrette. My other hero, of course, is Alan Jacobs, who will get the Athena Award tomorrow. As a matter of fact, this one says Jacobs. The Great Streets book is still about my favorite book. I've forgotten when it came out, 10 or 12 years ago, and I got it for Christmas. It may be one of the best Christmas presents I ever got. And this is the book that you'll get if you are registered at the conference. That's the index page and the cover. It was produced entirely by volunteers, 35 people who wrote articles, more or less, and 2 virtual volunteers. I guess they worked for about 50 cents an hour. Jeff Gibson here on the front row and Marisa Vallis back there. They did yeoman duty and they got it done. I picked up the first box of books last Friday, late in the afternoon. They still smell very new. There are going to be a few extra books, and we hope to sell them through the School of Architecture and create a scholarship fund, urban design traveling fund or something like that with a little bit of extra money. Now, when Will Wynn and I talked about doing this together tonight, he said he thought he would concentrate on the global warming thing. And I had heard his presentation before, which is spectacular, I think you'll agree. And so I said, uh-oh, I know what that means. It means following Will on the program. That ain't good. The other thing was that he said, you know, kind of bring it down to the ground. Bring it down to what do we do about it? Well, that's a pretty good charge he laid on me. And so we tried to do that somewhat in the book. I wanted to talk about how you get from global warming to the geography of opportunity right here in Austin now, today. This is an image that somebody, I don't even know who, did of all the buildings that are proposed downtown, which will create density and tax base and a lot of tall buildings. Downtown, for better or for worse, is on a fast track. We don't talk much about small infill downtown. We don't talk much about extremely small infill downtown or adaptive reuse. This is a project, an old project of mine on 4th Street, which many of you probably know about. Next, you move from downtown to the inner city neighborhoods, and you talk about density, increasing density, walkability. This is a project in South Austin that where 16 units replaced one fallen down house on one lot, one single family lot. So it went from 1 unit per acre to 13 units per acre. And the neighborhood is much better off for it. This is an interesting challenge to do this kind of density increase in an existing neighborhood and do more good than harm. It is possible to do. Unfortunately, now this project is not possible because of subsequent legislation. Now we move to the corridors. Think about the 10, 12 ugliest streets in Austin. You know what I mean? Burnett Road, South Lamar, North Lamar, you name it. They're all over the place. They are all arterials primarily. And then imagine, as some people have, transforming that, what you saw before, into transit-enabled, walkable, urban neighborhoods up to 3 to 5 stories, whatever, where you can walk to your Starbucks on your way to work as you walk to work. This is a map of the central part of the city, moving outward from the corridors, which are represented here, to the next category, which we call black holes. Black holes. You're going to find out what that means, right? And the idea is that the model is that you move from the center to the neighborhoods, out the corridors, to the black holes, and then to the region. The black holes are things like the Mueller Airport, which is being transformed from the black hole into a fabulously planned new town in town virtually with its own town center, hopefully to get rail transit. But you have a, I don't know, maybe does this work like that? No? Anyway, you have, most cities have industrial land that's been left over. Austin never had any industry to speak of, certainly not 19th century, early 20th century type. But what they do have is large tracts of land that the state has used for one purpose or another for many decades. Most of that land is on the list to be disposed of. So ultimately, and there are two examples where that's already happened. One is Central Park, Central Market, and the other one is the Triangle. So we know this is happening, and as of now, the Brackenridge tract, which is university track, also a black hole, is scheduled to be studied in the next year or so for development. And then there's all the property, the brownfields along the lake, former brownfields, and then finally you have this huge area called Riverside Drive, which is, as far as I can tell, is a total loss, and it'll be redeveloped sooner or later. It's just inevitable. The mother of all black holes was created by the state, of course, where you've got, say, 21, 22 blocks there. 14 of them are dedicated to parking. Well, that's bad enough, but then you have to have 14 blocks, which, half of those are garages. How many cars is that have to commute? Probably an average of 20, 25 miles just to park and make that land useless. The most flattering photograph we could find of parking garages of the state is on the bottom. This area needs to be reinvented really badly. IH-35, we know what that experience is like. We know what it does to divide East Austin from Austin. We know what a political barrier it is, a social barrier, and most of all, an economic barrier. We can imagine that it has cost us $1 billion in development potential. So a plan to bury it and liberate the lands along the side, reinvent the grid, reconnect East Austin, could create a healthy, prosperous city. And it's no small deal. Moving to the region, there are two things that have happened as a result of Envision Central Texas. Envision Central Texas is an amazing process, and it's well described by Dean Steiner in the book. But it didn't just happen. Two things, two important, what should I call, tools of implementation have happened in the past year. One is the Green Plan, which is an open space plan for the whole region. The other, of course, is this study done by the Planning Commission, a subcommittee led by Sid Galindo, which looked at the region for all those spots of density, compact city, connectivity, rail-enabled, et cetera, that are likely if you take the results of Envision Central Texas seriously. 13,000 people almost voted with their plans and stickers for a pattern of development like this as an alternative to continued sprawl. And so, Mayor Witt, these are the things that people out there are trying to do to answer your challenge regarding what do we do about it. I wanted to move on and say basically thank you. The Athena Award is a great honor, needless to say. I need to confess, if I'm going to get this award, there are a couple of things. One is that I had my own movement before New Urbanism. It was called True Urbanism. And I was pretty passionate about it, and I had a huge following. And that huge following, I realized one day, amounted to me. That was it. So much for my marketing skills, but I was trying. I'm just glad smart people came along and decided to create something called New Urbanism and do something about it. They have marketing skills, believe me. The other thing I have to confess is that when John Norquist told me that I was going to get the Athena Award, he said, we've honored Jane Jacobs, and we're going to honor Alan Jacobs. Actually, tomorrow night, Alan Jacobs will get this medal. you saw the one that I get, the virtual one. Anyway, he said, John said, you're going to have to change your name to Jacobs. So I said, okay, John, it's done. Anyway, I want to thank everybody. Thank y'all. Y'all, that's you all or all of you in Texas. So thank y'all.